Victoria International Airport is one of the coolest mid-sized airports in Canada. Today, we're going to be going plane spotting there to gain a better understanding of what plane spotting at a mid-sized airport in Canada looks like. I really hope all of you are excited for this, so without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Alrighty everybody, welcome to plane spotting at Victoria International Airport. I really hope all of you are excited for this, as again, today we're going to be taking a look at what all this mid-sized operation looks like in Canada. Of course, we're in southwestern British Columbia, so we can expect to see more aircraft catered towards that region of Canada. But again, it's going to be really fun, and I hope all of you are excited for this. So I just thought that I would put this picture out here to start because it's a really good one. But let's go ahead and scroll back. And we'll get started with the operations here at Victoria International Airport. So here we are as we walked in. Feel free to check out the full airport infrastructure video to gain a better understanding of what the airport looks like. It's a tour video rather, but you know what I'm talking about. So Victoria has around 12 gates or so. So they have kind of a pentacle-like setup. So they just have a T concourse. So they have piers on both sides that have a handful of gates, and then they have a full rectangle that has the majority of the gates. So here we go. So we're looking out here to the left at the left pier of the T. So you can see here, gate number 4, we have this Alaska operated by SkyWest ERJ-175. Alaska operates nonstop service to Seattle multiple times a day. This is the only U.S. service, I believe, that comes to Victoria, so that's really cool. And it's really fascinating to think about some of these mid-sized airports that have international air service, because technically, I know it sounds crazy, but this is an international air service despite this being like a 25-30 minute flight. So it's definitely really fascinating to think about that. So as you can see, this aircraft is getting fully loaded here with the bags on the other side. We're also on the front lid side over here, so that's nice as well. And it's definitely worth noting that these international services still can be complicated in their logistics despite being such a short flight. So I believe Alaska's been operating this for a long time. It was mainly Dash 8s and other prop aircraft prior to the ERJ-175, but of course that's their smallest aircraft now, so that's what they're operating here at gate number 4. So really fascinating to think about that, and kind of a nice segue into Canadian aviation, considering that we're used to seeing more of these US carriers, especially off those Seattle plane spotting videos earlier in this series. So looking very nice right there. We also have Air Canada Jazz pushback tug right there too. So good looking plane there, November 194 Sierra Whiskey. Our next aircraft, I walked over to the other tier piece, or T piece, you know, the other pier off of it. At gate number 12, we have this Flair Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8. This aircraft's getting ready to push back here shortly, and Flair has a variety of routes as well. In fact, sorry that I didn't have this already ready to go, but I do want to share these routes with all of you so you can gain a better understanding of what this airport looks like, and also the airport code for the airport, I believe, is, I think it's YYJ, isn't it? Or I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'll figure out real quick, but let me just go ahead and type it in. Sorry for the interruption, but I want to give all of you the best understanding that you can expect as possible. So Victoria is YYJ indeed, and Flair flies to a variety of cities. You can see seasonal service to Calgary, Edmonton, Las Vegas, and Toronto. So it's really cool to see these local Canadian carriers getting in on the action to international destinations too, but obviously the workhorses being again Calgary, Edmonton, and Toronto, which is their longest route, I believe. They actually have some Montreal service on Air Canada, so this is really cool. That's Air Canada that has the Montreal flight. So yeah, this aircraft's loading up here at gate number 12, and it's going to be pushing back here shortly, and we'll get some better shots. But it's really cool to see Flair with a variety of services. I believe Lynx never flew here. I might be wrong on that. I think it was just Flair out of the low-cost Canadian carriers to start in the 2020s that started service here to Victoria. So very cool to see this right here. And then over here on the hard stand that we'll see get pulled over to the gate in a moment, we have an Air Canada Rouge Airbus A319. Air Canada Rouge flies seasonal service to Montreal and Toronto, which is very nice to note. I think there was a time where they flew the 767s here, which is very cool. Victoria has 3 runways. They have runway 321, runway 0921, and I think they might have a 1533 or equivalent somewhere in that area. But yeah, great to see Air Canada Rouge here with the 319 with the ladder, and we'll get some better shots here of it in a moment. So also, I've kind of changed up the presentation of how I'm talking through these spotting videos for the smaller airports, kind of gain a more what's the correct word? Genuine's not the right word, but a more in-depth analysis, because obviously there's not as many planes here, and kind of making it more airport concentrated. So if you're enjoying the different perspective, feel free to let me know. But you can also see some beat up nose cone there. So I guess my model airplanes aren't completely unrealistic when the paint chips on the nose there. So definitely nice to note that, along with a variety of ground service equipment, pretty similar to what we would find here in the United States. So that's definitely looking very nice right there. Here's the Flare 737 MAX from the ground level. So the pier actually rises up right there, which is pretty fascinating to think about. So definitely a very interesting observation right there. But again, this aircraft's getting ready to push back as they have a variety of ground service employees that are getting ready to push the aircraft back here at gate number 12. And here's the side perspective as well. As you can see, the Air Canada Rouge, I think this is an A321 at gate number 13 over there, and we'll see that more here in a moment. But again, this aircraft is the Flare MAX 8. Charlie, Foxtrot, Lima, Delta, X-Ray for this particular example. And here it is pushing back that we started with those shots earlier, and I just thought that the flare livery looked really nice there in the front lit conditions. So let's get to that beacon shot again so we can admire it. So here it is. I think that they went for a really neat design. You typically don't see the billboard titles in black, so that's really cool that they did that along with this lime green color. So I've heard pretty interesting remarks about Flare. I still really would like to fly them. I actually was scheduled to fly Lynx at the end of this trip, going from Calgary to Las Vegas, but they changed the day and it did not work into the plan, so I ended up flying United back. So yeah, hopefully I hope to fly more of these carriers. I still would like to do an Air Canada mainline flight, Flare, and all the other airlines too. So of course there's plenty to do, and there's plenty of wide bodies that are flying across the country as well from cities like Vancouver and Toronto, so hope to see that too. Definitely stay on the lookout for that Vancouver plane spotting video. It's going to be a bunch of fun. But anyways, this aircraft's pushing back presumably for one of their 4 seasonal destinations here at the airport. Now here's that Air Canada Airbus A321 for Rouge that I was talking about. This aircraft has CFMs and it's a fins tip example. Again, they fly to Montreal and Toronto, so it's really cool to see that they're using these capable A321 jets to fulfill that purpose, and I'm sure they're very popular. As you'll see in the airport infrastructure video, the security lines were 25 to 30 minutes, and I think there was only like 6 flights going out or so, which is a substantial number for an airport like Victoria in the summer months, because obviously in the winter months you're looking at flights more like just that Alaska service to Seattle, a handful of flights to Toronto, flights to Calgary, and obviously a handful of flights to Vancouver as well, but not all these Las Vegas services. And Westjet has a variety of seasonal services that we also need to note as well. Some of them are winter seasonal, but it's worth noting that they have Cancun, Las Vegas, Puerto Vallarta, San Jose del Cabo, Toronto, and Winnipeg. So there's definitely plenty of services there that are really important to note. Keymore Air also flies here as well. They're the other U.S. carrier. I did not know they flew here, so I apologize, but they do fly to Everett, Friday Harbor, and Seattle Boeing. So it's really cool to note the props here that also fly as well. I'll show you on the satellite here in a little bit towards the end of the video, but there's actually a harbor area over on the left side. I think that's probably where they docked them up. So that's really cool that they consider it the actual airport, or if they have wheels. I'm not exactly sure, but I didn't see any of those Keymore Air aircraft during my time here. Next up, we have this beautiful Swoop Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8. I think this is my first time catching a MAX 8 for Swoop. I might be wrong on that, but this is still a beautiful looking aircraft as well. This even has the Toronto label there on the front. This aircraft's Charlie Golf India Sierra Mike. Swoop, unfortunately, has been integrated into Westjet, so I don't have a list here of exactly what they were flying at this time, but presumably they were flying some of the Westjet routes. I can only assume that this could have been a Toronto flight or possibly Calgary or equivalent, but of course, Swoop was a subsidiary of Westjet, and they flew the low-cost portion of what Westjet was doing. So it's really cool. I know several of these aircraft still wear the Swoop livery, and it says operated by Westjet now, but I think Swoop made it about 3 years or so. I remember getting a model aircraft in 2020, and of course now we're here in 2024 as the aircraft's been, the airline rather, it's been integrated back into Westjet. So really nice shot here as well, I should note, with the light and all the various components here, adding to a crispy picture here of this MAX 8. So absolutely we'll have to work on some editing here for this particular airframe. But yeah, this aircraft is pushing back, and it's really cool to see that Swoop had a really large presence here. So I think it was parking at gate 5 or 6 right there. But anyways, it's really cool to see it here pushing back, and they even got the cones on the pushback tugs. I might have to represent that sometime. It's pretty fascinating. But anyways, this Swoop MAX 8 is gorgeous, and it's definitely a really cool catch here at Victoria International. Here's a different perspective of the Alaska 175. This aircraft's now going to be pushing back, and we're going over to the other side of the glass again. Another cool shot, the Rouge A321, which is such a beautiful plane. And the Rouge A319 is a really good catch. There's barely any of those left, so much so when they were initially going to get retired during 2020, I sold my model aircraft of it. So a little bit regretting that right now, but it's okay because, you know, obviously I didn't know any better, so you learn. This is an extremely cool shot. I know there's glare on it, but of course you got the Rouge A319 being pulled into the gate while the 321 leaves. So I know it's not the prettiest shot, but I'm still very glad I was able to capture it, and definitely a memory that we'll get to live on for many years, especially since the antenna is right in the correct spot there in 321. So I'm sure I can crop it about here and level it and all that. So there's plenty to do with that shot. But yes, it's certainly really cool. In fact, this one's actually more in focus, so that's the better one of the two for sure. So they're using the jazz tug as well, which is very fascinating to me. So that's really cool to see. So yeah, both Rouges right there. That's really cool. And as I was just noting, there's the Air Canada Rouge A319 getting pulled into the gate for presumably a flight to Toronto or equivalent. So I don't know exactly if they use Air Canada Rouge planes on Air Canada flights, the mainline brand that is. I'm sure they do, but who knows. Westjet flies a huge quantity of these Dash 8 Q400s into Victoria in airports of similar size. This is operating for Westjet Encore, of course, which flies to Calgary, Kelowna, Edmonton, and Vancouver. So it's definitely a nice plethora of services that these aircraft fly. They're also more common, again, in the winter months when there's less demand. They'll fly them more to Calgary and places that don't have quite as much hub and spoke demand, which means people connecting on through a hub, which in this case would be Vancouver or Calgary, and even Edmonton has potential as well for connections to go on to another destination. So yeah, definitely really cool to note this particular example, probably coming in from Kelowna. So yeah, that's a really great looking plane. I believe this is a Black Hawk helicopter, which is really cool to note. I did not see a crazy amount of military traffic during this Pacific Northwest excursion, so it's definitely really cool to see this airframe making its rounds right there. And then over here at Victoria, they also have a branch of FedEx aircraft, which is really cool. So FedEx does fly cargo service here, and they only fly one service. It's to Vancouver rather, and the other three cargo carriers only fly to Vancouver as well. Those are going to be KF Cargo, Morningstar Air Express, and Skylink Express. So it's a very unique plethora of carriers flying the same cargo service. So presumably this might be one of them over here as well, or just a really cool Canadian themed Beechcraft aircraft. So it's really cool to see all the various features here that go on with aviation like this. I'm sure Victoria also has some rich aviation history. This hangar looks extremely dated, so I'm sure that's really cool. I also believe that there's some aircraft on display on the southeast side of the airport. Unfortunately, I did not have the adequate time to check those out, but I did see them earlier in the day, so that's really cool. So here's Westjet docked up here at gate number 8. So again, presumably Victoria or equivalent. So sorry about the glare as well. This was not my prettiest moment, but with the glass was at an angle, so I couldn't do too much about that one. There's a Cessna 172 right there. You're pretty much bound to see these at any airport. It's also runway 1432. I was close. It was not 15, but I hope all of you know what I'm talking about. There is a Cessna on floats with the tires, so presumably that's what Keymore Air is doing here. There's the beautiful Air Canada Rouge A319. This aircraft, again, presumably Toronto or Montreal. So Charlie Golf Bravo Hotel Romeo. And it also has a 10 sticker there above the R on the Rouge. So great to see this aircraft once again, and definitely we'll have to edit up some shots because these are really good. And here's going to be our flight for the next upcoming video. This is the Pacific Coastal Beechcraft 1900 Charlie variant. So this is a really cool aircraft for a variety of reasons. First off, flying a Beechcraft in 2024 is, well, this was in 23, but obviously now in general is pretty challenging. There's only a handful of carriers that do it, like Pacific Coastal, for example. The other component of this that is very unique is that this is a 19C, not a D. So 19Ds have winglets. You've probably seen several of those in the past where they have just a little winglet tip right here. This is a Charlie variant, and I believe this is one of the few that Pacific Coastal operates. This does not have that winglet piece, which is really cool. I'm sure there's also some other specification differences because of this, but it's very cool that we scored the Charlie variant, which is a very rare aircraft variant to score. The Beechcraft isn't quite as tough, but the variant is extremely tough, as normally you're only going to find the D variants flying around. So presumably this was a cargo aircraft or some sort of other subsidiary, or maybe some sort of passenger one that, you know, an airline had for an extended period of time. But they handed it off to Pacific Coastal, which in this case they have very unique tail fins here. So here's one with some trees, and I believe this is a truck hauling some lumber or rods, one or the other. You can also see the beautiful livery here with the orange and navy. So it's truly really cool, and I hope to do some sort of custom on this in the future. But yeah, Pacific Coastal, definitely a very cool carrier with their liveries. So of course I had to catch the inbound aircraft parking here at gate number 7. This aircraft is going to be taking us to Vancouver International, which Pacific Coastal is so large they have their own concourse area at Vancouver Airport. I'll show you here in the upcoming videos, but it's on the south side of the airport near their observation area, which is really cool. There's that Canadian themed Beechcraft that I was talking about earlier. So again, I'm not exactly sure what this aircraft's doing. In fact, you know what, since we're already into this part of the video, why don't I just tell you what the internet tells me about this aircraft. Charlie Foxtrot Hotel Sierra Papa is a I don't want the jet photos link. I kind of need one that it's actually on a livery on Microsoft Flight Simulator, ironically enough. It's not giving me any registration information here on FlightAware at all, so apologies about that. But here on Flight Radar 24, this is a King Air 350 Charlie variant. It is 10 years old. It was delivered in 2014, and it's Pacific Sky Aviation, so it was one of those cargo carriers, as I thought. So this Pacific Sky Aviation, presumably going out to Vancouver on their cargo service. So it's really cool to see that we've put the pieces together on what that is. So that's the Pacific Sky Aviation aircraft. Here's also the local news that they were running there in the airport. I thought this was fascinating to note for a couple of different reasons. First off, what global news channels they play in Canadian airports. So that's what we have there. You also note that the temperature and weather is regarded to in Celsius. Canada uses Celsius rather than Fahrenheit, among many other countries in the world. So pretty pleasant day there, 28, but 33 is definitely really high there for Victoria. So yeah, definitely worth noting that. And then a substantial drop off to 24. That's like the difference of 35 degrees, really substantial. So yeah, definitely worth noting what they're doing there. So that's interesting, but they are still promoting U.S. sports, so keep that in mind. So just thought that was an interesting perspective. Here is a Westjet Airlines 737 MAX 8 Charlie Golf X-Ray Alpha X-Ray. This aircraft is taxiing in, probably going to the swoop gate as well. Westjet, of course, as I said earlier, flies a variety of services, some of them seasonal, some of them year-round, but they fly year-round mainline service to Calgary and Edmonton, with seasonal services currently to Cancun, Las Vegas, Puerto Vallarta, San Jose del Cabo, Toronto Pearson, and the Winnipeg airport. So definitely a wide variety of cities that these fly to. These could be coming in from any one of those. I'm a little surprised that Toronto is not a year-round service for Westjet. I thought that was a market that they would want to compete more with Air Canada on, but you know, it's probably a monopoly there in the winter months considering the lesser demand. So you can definitely see that. So there's Westjet taxiing in again. Beautiful scenery here as well, with some just slight mountain peaks there in the back. So it's definitely a really nature-like airport. So we love that, and with all the trees as well. Here's that Westjet Q400 getting some final GPU action there. Not as common during the day, but these are older planes, so probably needed some help starting. So you can see the right propeller over there, engine number, I believe that's going to be 2, trying to start. So definitely worth noting that. And here we go for our flight on the Pacific Coastal Beechcraft 1900, also with a little GPU there. We're going to be going from Victoria to Vancouver in the next video, so I hope all of you are looking forward to that. It was a super fun flight and really enjoyed all the components of learning what these prop aircraft are all about. I sat back here at seat 8A, it's somewhere in this area, so very good for a complimentary seat selection. I think the seat selection prices were like $15. It was a little higher than what I thought was worth paying for a I think it was about as long as this video, 17-minute flight or so. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. The Vancouver plane spotting video, among all the other videos that will be coming out here on my channel. I really have enjoyed posting all these Pacific Northwest videos, and apologies that they've been a little bit slower during the month of July here, but there's just been a bunch going on and I haven't been home. So I know I was really in a good groove there in June. They were just on. And that was because I was able to pre-record it all. So I hope to get back in that routine for August, since I'll be back at home. But the good news is we haven't been just on a huge gap. We've done that a couple times. We still have been posting these videos, just on a little bit less of a frequency. But we are making very good progress through this trip, and I'm thinking by the end of September for sure we will be moving into the next one or so, but hopefully by the end of August or so. We'll just see how the content progresses. But regardless of the case, I hope all of you have enjoyed this, and I'm looking super forward to more spotting videos in the future. So with all that being said, everybody, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. My name is Redriveraviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Trust the process. Do you love and love you do. My name is Redriveraviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Redriveraviation is signing off.